And welcome to my channel. I am ZodiacBandit, and today we're going to be recapping episode 33 of campaign 3 of Critical Role. First of all, this episode was crazy. This episode was crazy good, crazy suspenseful, crazy string pulling, whatever the expression is. This episode was pure madness from beginning to end. I enjoyed every minute of it. Weirdly, not that there are certain points that you shouldn't enjoy, but this episode was madness. It's a roller coaster, incredible, great episode, and yeah, let's get into it. So we start at the Seat of Disdain, where Orm is looking into the storm and sees pure chaos, like from last time when the initial attack on the fort was happening, and he looks up and sees pure chaos. The walls of the Seat of Disdain are being attacked, and the mammoth rider within the courtyard is also under heavy fire. Chetney, Orm, and Imogen choose to go back inside to go after Treshy, and Laudna, Ashton, Fern go for the mammoth crawler and the boxes and crates on that, while FCG kind of just stands there, looking out into the pure chaos as well. It seems one of the walls has been taken by the attackers. Paragon's call members are climbing ladders, trying to get to the top of the wall, and the ladder gets pushed back down, and they, splat onto the ground. Laudna casts Spider Climb on herself, using it to go underneath the mammoth crawler. Fern and Ashen go for some of the crates they see that have fallen off the mammoth rider, and they join some of the Paragon's call members, picking these crates up and moving them inside, as it seems to be the primary target of these attackers. As they get there, one of the boxes that is marked for Treshy is open, and they see these small crystal vials. Ashen grabs 3 of these vials, and Fern grabs a black crate. Then a large explosion goes off that hit the mammoth crawler, destroying one of the last few legs that this crawler had, and it begins to fall. Laudna, who is still under it, has to make a save to get on top, and she succeeds and is able to climb to the top of it and is no longer in danger of being squished. Fern sends Mr. to help her. Laudna then asks Mr. to find one of the black crates, and he just goes right back to Fern as she had one. A little cheeky friggin' thing. Another explosion hits both Ashen and Fern as they run back into the fort. They don't take too much damage. FCG looks up to the wall and sees some Paragon's call members have made their way back to the top and are fighting the attackers, trying to win back the wall. FCG also sees the attackers' clothing are notably generic and sort of mundane, as if they were trying to blend in before the attack happened, which makes a lot of sense. Chetney leads the team towards Treshy. On the way, they pass the war room and hear people trying to figure out what's going on, who's inside the base, how many's inside the base, who exactly is attacking them. They continue on down to the grate that leads to the basement floor. Chetney tries to unlock the grate, but it's already unlocked. Chetney rips the grate open and runs down the stairs looking for traps, but fails to see one, and trips over a tripwire and is about to slam into the ground, and Imogen tries to save him with telekinesis, but only barely pulls him back enough, but he still goes down and hits his face on the ground, making a little bit of noise. When he gets to the ground, he sees one of the guards is either dead or out cold, they're not quite sure. Imogen and Orm run past as Chetney checks his guard for keys, doesn't have any. They get to a hallway and immediately get shot up by people with yellow cloaks, which means Paragon's call members, before those 2 who are shooting at them duck back behind cover. They try to talk to them, but they get shot by someone else in a different direction, so those cloaked wearing members are no longer paying too much attention to Orm and Imogen. Orm runs to where the cells are and sees Treshy in his cell, and someone is trying to get the door open, and meets a knife to his face. He looks up to see Artanavo, which is someone he saw in the last episode. Artanavo shoots at one of the guards, killing him. Imogen blasts her with a psionic lance, incapacitating her immediately. Orem ties up her legs. Imogen kicks her crossbow down the hallway. Chetney runs over to Treshy, trying to unlock, or telling someone else to get the keys off Artanavo. Imogen grabs the black hole and tells Treshy to jump in, but he doesn't quite bite on the idea. Artanavo gets up from her incapacitated state and takes a short sword out and asks what the party is doing. Orem disarms her and kicks that blade away from her. Then tries to stab her, but he misses, and he gets his arm trapped by Artanavo, who says that they're fucking up a lot of planning and hard work. Orem says they're leaving with him. She asks Orem where, and Orem tells her, we'll find out on the way, rolls a natural 20 to convince her to join them. Chetney then also follows up a natural 20 with his own natural 20 to pick the lock. Chetney then asks Treshy to clarify if he's a prisoner or someone being protected, and, Treshy's kind of like, both. Imogen casts command on Treshy to get into the hole, but he doesn't listen. Doesn't work. Chetney then takes his chisel to Treshy and tells him to get into the hole, and with another natural 20, they get the goddamn bastard in the hole. They then pick up the black hole. Orem cuts Artanavo free. She grabs her shit, turns invisible, and then asks where they're taking him. Imogen talks to Orem in his head and says that maybe trusting her is a mistake. Imogen tries to tell her tells Orem to tell Artanavo whatever he wants to, and he says they're taking him back home, meaning Jushar. Artanavo turns visible once more in a hallway leading toward the exit and says it's time to get going. Back up top, there is pure chaos. Some call members have activated a rune crawler and are moving toward the mammoth crawler with it, firing at the assailers on the wall. This shit's crazy. Laudna talks to Ashton where the boxes are, but they tell her that they have what they need and that they're going to find a way out of here now. FCG tries to find some horses, but doesn't see any, as this is a crawler city, and sees a crawler over in the corner. Laudna tries to get back to the others after being on top of the mammoth crawler and gets hit by an explosion on the way. FCG goes for this crawler. Laudna sees FCG goes for it, but then goes past them to Ashton and then decides to climb up the wall for some reason. Ashton goes for FCG, and Fern is alone with her heavy black box watching the chaos unfold, truly in her element. She watches someone cast a spell trying to stop the crawler, but they get taken out and the spell ends and the crawler continues to move forward. FCG gets to the crawler and avoids getting hit by any of the explosions and finds the crawler is on its side, but it doesn't seem to be too damaged. They crawl into it and try to start it up. They push some levers forward and it slams into the wall, sending FCG flying. FCG goes back into the cockpit using his grappling hook. FCG then flips a coin, and then, if it lands tails, they go left. And it lands tails, so they pull the levers left. They try to find, at this point, it begins to move and sort of places itself, and then they push forward, and it's able to move completely free now, no longer slamming into a wall. They try to find their friends in all the chaos and see Ashton running toward them immediately. Ashton sees two small lights just barely peeking over the cockpit little ledge, and they tell them to get in. Ashton runs to FCG and barely avoiding all the explosions behind them. Ashton questions this idea as there's no real exit. FCG wants to find Fern at this point, and Fern is still watching it all happen. Like I said, she's in her element and is, she just decides she's going to start walking toward the main gate. At this point, she's fully involved in the chaos. Right next to the gate is a rune crawler, and she chooses to stay put instead and sees FCG's crawler not moving very well. They seem to be struggling with getting this thing moving forward. Laudna climbs to the up to the top of the ledge and sees Otohan, and they lock eyes for a second, briefly, and then Laudna immediately casts darkness. Laudna can see through it with one of her, if she casts it using a sorcery point, and she tries to place the tracking ring on her. She sees a small chamber on her backpack where she could hide the ring potentially. She tries to put it there stealthily inside the darkness, but Artana reaches for her. Otohan, not Artana. Otohan reaches for her blades, but Laudna doesn't know if she is successful or not in placing the ring there, and is able to avoid all the damage from Otohan. Otohan says whoever they are, their timing is curious, and Laudna jumps off the ledge like a crazy person, but casts Featherfall and lands, only breaking her bones naturally as she is to do, and she's able to snap them back in place, as is the flavor of the situation of her hollow one-ness. She regroups with the others, but not before being nearly run over by the crawler that Ashton and FCG are in. The other group, plus Artana Vo, are following her through the halls of the Seat of Disdain. They see some guards. She blasts them with rapid succession with her heavy crossbow, but they survive. Imogen then tells Artana Vo to play along, and she tackles her, telling the guards to move on, that they have her. She rolls high on this. They grab some chains, but throw them to the party instead. Imogen puts the chains on Artana Vo, but doesn't lock them. And Artana Vo is told to play along with this as well, and she does. Orym tells her that they are the Bell's Hells, and they aren't with her. She's with them. Laudna reaches out to Imogen and tells them that they have a crawler that they can escape with. On the way to the other group, Team Chetney comes across Ratanish. He sees Artana Vo and says, "Good job" to them. Imogen then throws her at him, and he catches her and says she's in the deep shit. But right as this all happens, Artana Vo turns invisible, gets out of the handcuffs, and frees herself and escapes. Ratanish tells them to find her. Imogen, Orym, and Chetney continue to the courtyard. They change plans. The original team changes plans, and instead of going to the front gate, they're going to go to the back gate now. FCG takes the crawler toward that gate, moving away from the fight. They cast Shield of Fate on the crawler to add some AC to it, as it desperately needs that, because these things seem to be soft for some reason. They see some call members set up a counterattack on their own wall. The crawler gets to the gate, and it's reinforced like the other one for these similar situations. And there are some braces on it that could keep it closed in an event like this. Fern tries to cast telekinesis with her ring, which seems overpowered. There's no one-time use per day, and it's like 1,000 pounds is what Fern says. So seems a little strong and underutilized, but that EXU stuff. She tries to open the door with it, and she gets the process started, but this ring isn't strong enough to pull this door completely open. Ashton rages and goes for the brace on top. They get their portal rage, which is cool, and put their hand through the portal and rip off one of the braces. Then they hit the lower one, but it doesn't quite come off completely like the first one did, and is now hanging there and could fall either way if it goes off or back into place. FCG tries to use their grappling gun to get the brace to fall off correctly. Fern, which doesn't work by the way, Fern jumps up, gives it a little push, and unfortunately it falls back into place, so they have to restart this process on this brace altogether. Fern then uses her ring to get the last bit of the brace off as the rest of the party get to the gate. They start to open it, and they push their way through. There's a bit of confusion on who is going to take the crawler to Joe's, and who is going to go on foot. Orem looks for Artanavo and sees a small shadow leave the fort. They choose to keep the door open as it's a little difficult to close it. So then Orem, Imogen, Laudna, and Fern choose to use the crawler and take it halfway to Joe's before they get off of it, which I think later they switch Laudna for Ashton at some point. And I'll get to that in a minute because it's kind of messed me up. I didn't see that part. But I'll explain why I say that in a minute. Leaving the others to figure out how to get out. As they use the crawler to escape, they see that Otohan is standing on the outside of the fort waiting for them. She attacks the crawler like a twister, hitting it a few times and destroying the front wheel, sending all those on the crawler flying and leading only one of them to succeed. They all land hard after the explosion. The rest of the party sees this, and she stands up and says, "Let's have a conversation." And out of her backpack, she summons 3 figures that look just like her, only darker and more shadowy. So this is where break happens. And I want to give a little tiny bit of insight into the way I watch these episodes, because this nearly made me do something different. So normally I watch the first half because I live in Ontario, Canada, and thus when Critical Role is on, it's 10 p.m. for me. So 10 p.m., which kind of late, and it's on a Thursday, which is inconvenient. So I watch till half, which is usually around 12 or 12:30, and then I go to bed because I got to work the next day, and I wake up the next morning and I make my breakfast and I watch as I make my breakfast and shit. And then throughout the day I'll watch it on breaks or whenever. And then I come back and make my, my script here, which I'm reading off, and that's it. This was the first episode in so long, like I think since the first 3 episodes, that I considered staying up to watch the whole thing and just being tired today at work instead, because I was so invested in this first half. It was madness. It was crazy. It was simply one of the best first halves of a Critical Role episode in forever for me. I've watched all of Campaign 1 and Campaign 2 and all of Campaign 3. This might be the best, most chaotic first half ever. And I loved every second of it. And I almost stayed up till there was a 4-hour episode, and I almost stayed up to 2 in the morning to watch this because I needed to see it. Thank God I was able to avoid all social media for the rest of the episode, because we're about to get into it. It is pure madness, and yeah, I just needed to give a little insight into the way I create these videos, because I think that helps reinforce how maddening or how crazy this first half was. So Otohan is standing before the party with these shadowy figures, and Orem recognizes these figures as the assassins that attacked Zephyra. Otohan asks who sent them. Imogen casts a spell, which I forgot the name of, that makes her storm, but there are tendrils within the storm, and it hits Otohan. She's able to save it, so it does a little bit less, but all of her assassins that she summoned in this moment fade away. Otohan then reads Orem's mind and sees Lord Esteros is the one that sent them, and says that she must pay him a visit once this is all done, which is fucked up because he's an old man. Leave him alone. Otohan is still within the storm, summons 3 more of her dark assassins, and combat starts. This is where the whole, I think, Laudna and Ashton switched places at some point, because initially Laudna was sent flying and would have been with Ashton's group, with Imogen and that group, and Ashton would have been with the other group behind the storm. So at this point, there's 3 on one side, 4 on the other, and for whatever reason, when they placed the battle map down, Ashton was where Laudna was, and Laudna was where Ashton was. So I just wanted to point that out because it was a little weird for me. It was something I noticed. Sorry if you didn't notice it, but I noticed, so I felt like pointing it out. And it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Eventually, they all get into combat anyway, but it was just funny that they seemingly switched places by mistake, because Talzin read off the rules of the explosion from the crawlers and then said, but I'm not in it. But then was in that group after combat started. So, I don't know. Just thought it was funny. Thought I'd point that out. Otohan is first, and she attacks Ashton, and they go down first round, which is a very bad start. But Orym then picks them up with a potion. At this point, the plan seems to be to run. Imogen tells Laudna this, and Misty steps away. Fern tries to fight, but doesn't really do much, and uses Mister to teleport 15 feet and then run even further. Otohan then takes out Orym. As he goes down, he thinks of his husband and Derek. After this, Otohan takes out Ashton. They are both out cold now, within the first turn. At this point, things seem like not everyone will make it out of this alive. It's a very dire situation. Imogen thinks about what to do and continues to run through the building that she Misty stepped toward. Using a legendary action, Otohan then takes out Fern. That's 3 people down. Otohan is now moving after Chetney. Laudna uses Wither and Bloom to get Ashton back up. Otohan readies a psionic leap after seeing this. FCG used Healing Word on Fern to get her back up. Otohan then jumps for Laudna after she healed Ashton and doing some damage to her, and cuts her down, and we are back down to 2 people being down at this point. This is madness. Otohan hits Laudna for good measure, putting her down to 2 death saves. 2 failed death saves. Ashton gets up and, takes out one of Otohan's Echo Assassins that is across from Chetney, and then teleports themselves to a brief respite of safety to get away from all this madness. Chetney and Otohan fight once again. Chetney was the true MVP at this point, trying to hold her off, because I don't think at this point he has taken any damage, and he is currently a werewolf, currently doing good work with his blood maledicts and stuff like that. He was a true, I don't want to say tank, but he truly got in Otohan's way quite a bit, and was very stubborn and not dying, which is very good. Imogen tries to talk to Laudna at this point, but there is no answer, as Laudna is down. Imogen flies up 60 feet and looks down on the battlefield and sees a handful of her friends are currently injured. Mentally yelling at Otohan to stop. Fern uses Mister to heal Orym. At this point, Laudna rolls her potentially last death save and gets a goddamn natural 20 with Delilah in her ear saying, "Not yet, my child." Which, I think that's 4 or 5 not 20s this session. I don't think we've seen one in a little while, or at least not too many in one session for a while. So this is excellent, because this was the episode they goddamn needed them for, because I'll explain at the end. The bells are now all up at once, but most of them are below 10 HP, which is dangerous. FCG then takes out an Echo, and Otohan looks at Imogen and tells her that her friends are resilient and maybe she needs to be more complete in her job, and then goes back to work, attacking Chetney, but doesn't finish him off quite yet. Then she swaps places with her Echo, and then action surges and attacks Orym. Orym goes down with the first hit, then gets hit with the second hit, which gives him 2 failed death saves, and then hits him for the 3rd time, killing Orym. The first true non-scripted death of Campaign 3. Orym feels that he's failed, and that he will at least get to see Will and Derek, which, side note, means Derek died at some point. So that sucks. I don't know if he made it clear, if Liam made it clear if Derek died in the same instance as Will, but knowing that Derek died somewhere along the lines kind of sucks and is really sad for so many reasons. All the people that are important to Orym are fucking dead. This is madness. So Ashton then opens up a portal to attack Otohan from a distance, but unfortunately misses, just barely. Otohan then moves for Fern again. Chetney tries to follow, but is too slow. Otohan then knocks Fern out once more. Imogen tells Otohan to leave her friends alone and cast Dissonant Whispers, dealing some damage, making Otohan move away from Fern for now. Fern fails a death saving throw at this point. FCG moves closer to Orem to potentially put themselves in a proper position to revive him. Otohan rushes back toward Fern. Laudna messages Otohan and says that they know about the Moontide Crown and Ira and where to find them. The only way that she'll get that information is if this stops. Otohan asks if this is true and then attempts to read Imogen's mind, and she succeeds, and she sees that Laudna was being half truthful as they don't truly know where Ira is. FCG hides behind the destroyed crawler to get in better position. Otohan says that Imogen was so close and then cuts down Fern, killing her. We now have 2 deaths and only 1 potential revivify. I'm pretty sure FCG is on his last spell slot of that level, and we don't know if Fern has that prepared. So we don't know. And I don't even know if they have more than 1 diamond. They might, but you never know. At this point, Fern and Orem are both dead. Otohan then attacks Chetney, knocking him out, dealing 2 failed death saves. Things are looking incredibly bad for them at this point. Otohan tells Imogen the more she runs from it, the more she loses, and says to embrace the greatness within her. Imogen flies to Otohan and casts Witch Bolt, and at this point, Otohan grabs the tether between her and Imogen and says she's so close. Imogen says to FCG that they must save them, meaning all of her friends, and then flies down to Otohan and says she'll go with her if she lets everyone go. Otohan replies with, "You give in or they all die." Laudna casts Wither and Bloom once more on Chetney and Otohan, healing Chetney. Otohan looks at Laudna and asks Imogen if she's her favorite. Imogen begs Otohan not to hurt her, that is. But Otohan rushes Laudna. Chetney tries to stop her on the way, but he can't. Laudna gets knocked out, and then Otohan stabs Laudna through the chest, which gives her 2 death saves. She then throws her to the ground. Imogen then casts Dissonant Whispers once more. Doesn't really do much. And then at this point, Imogen has to make a wisdom saving throw, but fails. A red storm kicks up. Everything starts to slow down and freeze around them. She turns a reddish crimson hue, as Matt described it. The bolts that were the markings on Imogen's arms are now encompassing her entire body, and she is ripping buildings apart. Imogen screams in a pure bit of fury, pain, and vengeance. The rest are pulled into this tornado, this storm, and we see white, and that is where the episode ends. God damn you, Matthew. Why do you gotta do this? Why do you gotta make me wait a full week to get the resolution to 2 characters, potentially a third, being totally dead? We don't know what's going to happen to Imogen. My theory is that she and Otohan are going to teleport away and we don't see them for a little while, which will be sad. But this was such a tense, exciting, heartbreaking episode. It was so good. It was so good. It was a ton of fun. It was, like I said, heartbreaking. I am deeply saddened by the idea that we might not get more than 1 person back at this point. All the while, Treshy is currently in a black hole, losing oxygen at a rapid succession. This is just pure madness, and I am so excited for next week. So this, by the way, is... I do want to comment on a few things here. To me, this fight seemed fair but unfair at the same time. I feel like if they had a better starting point against Otohan, they might be able to beat her. But because they had already taken a bit of damage from the explosions and all the crap that was happening before, it's a little hard to say. If they were able to just get the 7 of them against Otohan, I truly believe they could probably beat her. So, with it all happening this way, with poor rolls and everything like that, it came down to dice rolls at this point. And, yeah. So, one of the things I do want to comment, and it's one of the reasons I freaking hate Twitch, and that is the terrible, Twitch chat. It's not truly terrible. I would say only like 5% of people are terrible, but I was watching this, and every once in a while I wanted to peek at the chat, because I was like, I want to see what people are thinking. And I was thinking that I would see a lot of similar minds to me, which is, this is, rough, terrible, whatever. And I looked at it, and there was so many people excited about the potential TPK. And I hate this. As a D&D player, I hate that mentality. And if any of those were my DMs, I would be terrified at the idea that all they're trying to do is kill the players. It's a terrible, terrible mindset for a DM to have, to be like, okay, I'm going to cause a TPK today. That is not Matt's goal. Matt is somebody who wants to challenge the players in role play, combat, and the rules, and have a great time doing it. And that's what he did today. He didn't kill everyone when he could have. He could have killed them so much sooner with legendary actions than he did. He knocked them down and went to someone else. He could have just fucking killed them. Like, first turn, Ashton goes down, and immediately, Orm's turn ends. Ashton is still on the ground. He could have just hit him again with a legendary action. But instead, he chose not to, and to move on to someone else, because he doesn't want to kill players. But if the need arises, he will. If they're too stubborn in combat, the DM has to be in character. And he did that. Otohan is a war hero, or a war criminal, whatever the hell she actually is, and would totally do this. She would leave them for now, because they might be dead. I need to move on to my next opponent. But as she sees them getting back up, she's like, okay, I need to make sure they're dead now, because they keep getting up and they're a problem. They keep doing shit when I think I'm done with them. I've moved on at this point, but they get back up and hit me in the back, and I'm done with it. I'm going to kill them now. That is totally how I imagine Otohan to work. And she's played expertly. So those of you who are upset by the potential difficulty of this, I don't agree. I think this is perfectly fair and it was played in character, which is what makes it ultimately fair to me. Second of all, those who want TPKs, you're a problem. I'm just going to be blunt. That's a problem mindset. And again, this character was perfectly played in character. Matt's not going to go out of his way to kill people. And Matt had to go out on Twitter and sort of tell everyone to take a break and relax. And, he had to reinforce the idea that his players are well aware of this. And every single one of them had to tweet out that, yes, this is their game. They love this. They were all excited about this episode, and they're all excited to see what happens next. So, yeah, I don't know. Listen, at the end of the day, this is their game. It's awesome to watch. So, I don't know where I'm going with this, honestly. I just want to get this off my chest, because I hate seeing the TPK mindset, and I hate seeing the you're going too hard on them mindset, because he wasn't. This was perfect in my opinion. This was the balance where he was skipping between them until they became too resilient and was starting to annoy the enemy in character. Perfect. Expertly done. I have no complaints. Zero complaints. The only complaint I had is that they moved fucking Laudna and Ashton's positions at the beginning of combat. Simple as that. That's my only issue. The rest of it, fucking amazing. This episode was awesome. This episode might be my favorite, full episode. I don't think this episode has, my favorite moment. My favorite moment is still from the last episode, or the episode before, I forget which one it was exactly with FCG, but this, as a pure episode, was awesome. And what was even great about it is that their plans succeeded. Their plans to grab Treshy and to get out fucking worked. And they met a wall after it worked. They were on the outside of the fort. They were so close to victory. And then, got taken out. So, at the end of the day, excellent episode. I'm going to never look at Twitch chat again. And don't go after the players or the DM after a game. Don't tweet at them saying that they're a terrible person or that they went too hard. Just enjoy the show. And if you're like me and you have to watch at 10 p.m., get some sleep. Watch it the next day. Watch it Monday. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this anymore. I'll see you guys Tuesday. Peace.